Hey there, Jamie with Brazelton Realty here. Today we are going to look at custom houses versus semi-custom houses. If you're considering a new build, I'm going to give you 5 things that you need to consider before you make a decision on custom or semi-custom, so keep watching. All right, without further ado, let's get right into this. The number one thing I think you want to keep in mind when you try to decide whether you want semi-custom or a full custom house when you're considering building is how much customization are you really going to want. When it comes to semi-custom, it really depends on the builder, but most builders, they give you some options. But outside of those options, they're really not going to be very apt to work with you on making some additional customizations to your house. Now, when it comes to full custom houses, those really, the sky's the limit. You're going to be able to find a builder that will do whatever you want within the guides of the county regulations and the HOA regulations if that applies. So when it comes to them, they're pretty much wide open. Semi-custom though, they are going to be very limited. Now that may not be a bad thing. I know we don't like limitations, but take it from somebody who has built a fully custom house before or had one built for me. There are a million questions that you have to answer. And when you get done, you're always second guessing yourself. You're always like, oh, why did I put the light switch there? I should have put it over here. And you'll always be doing that. So when you buy a semi-custom house, you don't decide where the light switches go necessarily, but that's okay because they vetted those things out and they have that system pretty well optimized for the best efficiency and use of space. So there's a good and a bad side to that. Now, the number 2 thing you want to keep in mind when you're deciding a custom or a semi-custom house is, do you want to be able to walk through the floor plan before you have it built? Most full customs, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to look at the blueprints, and it is so hard to tell how big a room is going to be just based on blueprints. Even if you have the dimensions, it's just hard to see the space without seeing the space and seeing furniture in that space. I know when we built, I took a tape measure everywhere I went. In almost every house I would go in, I would be measuring it to see, oh, well, this room is 10 by 10 and this is what it looks like. That way it would give me some perspective because it's just very hard to do. With semi-custom, more often than not, you're going to be able to find a model home that you'll be able to go in and look at the space, and you'll also be able to look at a lot of the options within that house to see what you like and what you don't like, what you can do without, and what you really would like. Now, the other thing you need to keep in mind, semi-custom, they're typically going to be quicker. And when you're building, they're building a bunch of houses on a street or in a certain area. So you're going to be one of 4, 5, 6, maybe even up to 10 houses that they're building at a time. So their subs are going to be moving along pretty quick. And so they're going to be able to move those houses relatively fast, and they're going to be more accurate on a due date for you as well. Now, a full custom house, you're going to look at probably a longer timeline. There's probably going to be more things that have to get done, more decisions that are getting made, and the builder's going to have to make certain decisions along the way that may be just abnormal to that particular house. That's just going to take longer. Plus, they're not employing as many subcontractors, so they're going to have more of a delay in waiting for subcontractors to come out. That's just kind of the nature of the business. Now, I mentioned before that fully custom houses, you can do anything you want. You know, the sky's the limit. But that also brings me to point number 4, which is fully custom houses have more headaches involved. You know, the more options you have, the more decisions you have to make, the more headaches that there is going to be. And there's always going to be more unforeseen things when it comes to a fully custom house than a semi-custom. Those semi-custom, they know what they can do, they know what they can't do, and they know what their guidelines are, and they just run with it. And so there's not as many headaches and delays because of those things. All right, so my last point number 5, is that full custom properties are more expensive. Now, this should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways, they're expensive in two ways. Typically, you're going to have a construction loan when you do a full custom because the builder is not a huge builder that's going to cover the costs for you. You'll probably have to cover those costs while the property is being built. So if it takes a year to build that property, you're going to be paying on that construction loan throughout that year, plus rent or another mortgage probably in the meantime. So it can get pretty expensive that way, plus just the building costs itself. They don't have as many subs, or they don't employ as many subs, so their sub prices are more expensive, their builder prices are more expensive, their margins are greater. That's just kind of the nature of it. They are going to be more expensive. Now, before you say, well, if they're more expensive, then I'm going to go the semi-custom route, I would caution you here. If you cannot live with some of their prefabbed ideas and options, and you want a say in absolutely everything, you need to understand that semi-custom does not give you a say in everything. And I can't tell you how many clients I've had that's been frustrated because they want this color and the builder says, sorry, we don't offer that color as an option. So they get frustrated and annoyed with that. If that's you, you may look at full custom. It is more, but you will have more options with it. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you got some ideas in your head about semi-custom versus custom. I'm gonna leave a link in the description below, and it's going to include some semi-custom builders that we have here in the Front Range. Semi-custom is by far the most popular, and so if that's something you're interested in, definitely check that out. I'm also gonna leave another video up here where I talk about buying an existing house versus building a new house, some pros and cons that you may want to think about.